Hello, friends and fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today, we are looking at Chapter 1 of The Quarry. I'm Jack, and as always, I'm joined by Liam.
How's it going?
But before we get into it, I'm going to throw it over back to you, mate, because you've got a little announcement to do, haven't you?
Yeah, so we're starting this one on a bit of a negative, I'm afraid. I guess I just wanted to apologise to you guys. I've been promising you that it would be an 80s School Fest mode. I'm going to keep this short because this isn't what this episode's about. But essentially, it turns out Gorefest mode is only for movie mode, which, you know, is quite questionable considering it seems like that could be quite easily implemented into the gameplay. And the 80s outfits don't come out till July. I'm not using Death Rewinds either because I want to live with my consequences, and I'm using standard filters, so I actually look at it and I'm not using any of the deluxe features. Now, it might be a good idea for another video about deluxe maybe not being that worth it in hindsight, but just so you guys know that my gameplay is going to be a complete standard playthrough. No Gorefest, standard outfits. So I do apologise, but hopefully, you know, maybe 80s outfits is something we can look at later in a different playthrough.
That's it, mate. So yeah, let's get straight into Chapter 1, shall we? Hackett's Quarry Forever. So what are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, really interesting. We commented in the last episode about how strong we thought the prologue characters with Max and Laura were. So obviously we get 7 new ones, and yeah, like they all seem really decent. There's a nice little variety of cast there. They're quite real as well, which is quite different from the Until Dawn ones. They're not just like caricatures. You don't have like the jock, the sassy girl. Like they all have layers almost. And it starts with Jacob, which is interesting. I thought it was quite an interesting choice to make us start with the jock. And I quite like the opening scene. We knew that him and Emma were going to get, Emma was going to dump him. I didn't know it would start that way. I thought maybe we'd witness it. But yeah, no, I really liked this opener with the whole, the car scene going around like the lodge and stuff where like, Dylan and Nick fob you off. What I will say though is that I'm pretty gutted because sometimes you can pick up a clue, and this game does sometimes tell you, oh, this will progress the scene. It can be like, oh, do you want to continue exploring or do you want to carry on? This scene didn't really do that. I picked up the bags pretty early doors, so I never really got to interact with Nick in the lodge, Dylan, who I believe you told me once was like in the bathroom or whatever. So it's a little frustrating. I feel like I missed a load of stuff out in this Jacob scene. But yeah, how about you, mate? What did you think of this whole sequence?
Yeah, I really liked it, and obviously it's quite funny how they're all treating Jacob off the get-go. You could be forgiven for being quite sympathetic towards him, really, because obviously Caitlin is obviously digging him out for Emma dumping him, and you've got the Nick and Dylan shutting the door on his face, and even Ryan, when he's sat there, he ignores Jacob to an extent, so you almost position Jacob as someone that the group doesn't think of that much. But yeah, I did like the scene, and I wouldn't worry about that particular lodge sequence. Like, you really didn't miss that much, mate. So if anything, I was probably too forensic, so I was like wandering around in between all the tables and things. I did look at the chimney, and there was it looked quite unstable. And then I did talk to Nick, and again, he just flat out ignored Jacob. Then I'm pretty sure you can talk to Dylan, like you knock on the door, but he's in the toilet. And then, did you go in the kitchen at all?
I did, and I managed to pick up the tarot. I luckily managed to get that right before, the sequence ended when I picked the bags up.
Right, yes, yeah, you'd have got that, and then obviously there's the door in there where you open it, and I think Jacob says something like, oh, it'll be easy to get stuck in here or something like that. But yeah, in terms of like other things you found, I know there's something that I found, and it was outside fairly near the car where the bags are, and it was Emma's bracelet. Did you find that at all?
Nah, I found the sign about, the de-immortality, but I never found Emma's bracelet.
Right, okay. So yeah, he basically puts it on his wrist afterwards, because obviously he's still longing for Emma to an extent. And it opens up this section in the menu. You have to scroll up right the way down the bottom. I think it's in the clues section. It's called Keepsake. So that's a little path that I'm going to keep an eye on going forward, because I really don't know how one little bracelet can sort of dramatically impact the game. But yeah, like, talk about clues in general. One comment that I'm going to say is that in sort of the Dark Pictures games, and even Until Dawn, you don't have to be that near the clue for like the little glowing light to come up. But I've had this observation, I don't know if you think the same, mate, but you almost have to be relatively near the clue in order for like for me it's like the press A button to come up, you know, in order to have a look at it. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like I've been missing a few tarot cards. You know, I think on 3 opportunities I've only got 1. I'll talk about it later, but Eliza's given me a bit of stick for it as well, so that's something that's quite funny.
You didn't find anything, and so I've nothing to show you. You need to look harder.
But yeah, you do actually have to go pretty close. I feel like, you know, I'm getting better at it. I'm getting more used to the game, but I do feel like early doors I missed a bunch, which is kind of frustrating. But at the same time, blind playthrough, you can never be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, well, we'll go into the first. I suppose it's a major choice. We'll obviously see when we do future playthroughs. When you're playing as Jacob, and of course, he's the one that sabotages the van. So what did you pick in that choice, mate? Was it to break the fuel line, or was it to take the rotor thing out?
I took the rotor arm out, and the reason I chose this was I was thinking if we did need this car back for a potential getaway, I thought maybe that just seems the easier one to fix. I think obviously if you cut the fuel line, you're probably fucking the car up majorly. You're going to need tape and a bunch of stuff to fix that. But yeah, I took the rotor arm off because it seems like that's something that you could just pop back on. How about you?
Yeah, see, that is smart. No, I just cut the fuel line. And so I don't know whether this happened for you or not, but going forward a second, there's the sequence where, you know, Jacob gets in the car and it all looks like, you know, they're about to get going, and he starts the engine, and obviously it doesn't go, and then I think then Chris gets in the car and he's like, let me have a go, and then you start to see smoke coming up from the engine, and then it full on sets on fire like the engine.
Oh no, I didn't get that.
Yeah, and then I think Jacob then runs off to go. It looks like he's grabbing a water bottle, but I don't know what my thinking was. I was like, what could be in there? Could it be fuel or something? Like, that could just make things worse. So there's a sequence where as Ryan, you can like take the water bottle off him. I think it's like one of those interrupt sequences. And then what I found really weird is that nothing happened per se. You just saw the car on fire. I don't think you heard an explosion. Black. And then it come back, like sort of it faded back through, and I was sort of sat there and I was thinking, is this sort of a weird moment where maybe I've just blown everyone up and everything that we're seeing from here is like some sort of weird alternate reality or something? Because that chop where it went to black felt very out of place, and I was like,
it would have been funny if the credits just rolled and that was it. Your game lasted 1 chapter.
Oh fuck yeah! Honestly, I'd be made up, because obviously like, there's an achievement and there, kill everyone, just blow everyone up with the car. That'd be so easy. But yeah. So all right. Well, shall we move on then to Abigail? So what happened in your sequence with her? Unless you've got any other points with Jacob.
Nah, I guess just to say that when I was playing as Jacob, I took quite a while to just take the scenes in. Like, I think it's such a nice contrast that Until Dawn you have all these snowy mountains, starry night and stuff, and then you come to the Quarry and it's a summer camp where it's sunny, the sun rays going through like the woods and stuff. And when I was Jacob, I took a moment to look out at like the lake and the water, and it's just like, hats off to Supermassive Games for a moment, because it is a really well crafted game. We've mentioned the facial animations and expressions and stuff, and like they've you keep bringing up about them making it more cinematic, but the game just looks gorgeous. So yeah, like hats off, well done Supermassive Games for that. But yeah, no, I'm happy to move on to Abby. I guess the first choice is about whether you break in the door. Now, personally, I did. I thought that we're going to get in there regardless, right? Bit of a weird one that it is locked. You know, I do question why their bags are in there. I wonder if that's relevant. But maybe it's just one of those things, like, by accident. But I'm glad I did break in, though, because it says Emma was proud of you. And I feel like it was one of those Until Dawn, Matt with the axe trying to get into the cable car kind of cabin, that your girlfriend or, like, you know, would just kind of, like, get in there anyway, but be more disappointed with you didn't follow her way. And it seems like Emma is the kind of person where she is set in her way. She has to have it her way, almost. So, yeah, I'm glad I did this. Did you break in yourself, mate?
I did, exact same with me, mate. And then when I went in there, I turned right straight away, and then I found the teddy in the bag, and I did choose to keep it. Did you choose to keep it?
Did. I thought it would be... I don't know why we need it, or if we ever do. But I did think it was funny that you take this teddy from Little Izzy, and instead I could potentially use it, like, maybe Bobby's going to kill me later, and then I give him that as a peace offering, and Bobby, like, just runs away into the woods with it instead. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking that's what I've got to use it for.
That's it. I picked it up. I thought, you know, collect some items, keep it. And then when I went on the menu, it then became part of, like, one of the, you know, the choice paths. And I was thinking, oh God, like, is there going to be a sequence later on where you can't make noise? I'm going to have this stupid toy on me, and it's then going to make noise and give me away or something. So it's one of those ones I'm going to keep my eye on, actually.
I think that is really possible, and it's one of those ones where it could be pro or con. You could gift it, like, a teddy bear to someone or something, maybe, you know, build a relationship with the character, but it could harm you when you're trying to hide. So yeah, I could really see both ways, and it's actually, you know, it's only Supermassive Games that could make me feel so nervous about having a teddy bear in my bag. But I mean, that's where I stand right now.
Yeah, no, it's true. But yeah, and as well, when you explore around the room, obviously you find this newspaper clipping that sort of goes into the fire, which of course, as we discussed in the prologue, is definitely part of this backstory, this travelling sideshow that obviously caught fire, and there's obviously sort of like this whole narrative behind it in terms of the Hag of Hackett's Quarry. It'll be interesting to see how that ties in. But from a pure, I don't know, just the general pacing, the general mood of this scene, I absolutely loved it. Like you say, the graphics, the sun bleeding through the tree, and you could just wander around. And I was one of those people, because you know what I'm like, I'm incredibly forensic with clue finding. I went up the steps of every single lodge, half expecting to be able to go into them, and there's literally, you get nothing from it. So I went all them steps up for no reason whatsoever.
That's good, because I chose one, and then I thought, there's nothing, I'm not doing that ever again, and then I stopped.
Yeah, well, very wise. But I did find clues, because obviously you do go up to, like, the sort of the little shelter at the back where Dylan does all of his recordings, and you do see like a crow or a raven there, I think, as well. And quick thing as well, you know how he's talking about Grace in the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast, like her surname being Corvin, and it like linked to crows. I'm just going to put a pin in that, because I don't know, like, maybe there's something there, maybe it's a bit too much, but yeah. So I wandered round, I checked the swimming pool out, I couldn't find anything, and I checked the tree out, and obviously you see on the tree etched the Jacob and Emma thing, but I then also found like this empty vial hidden up on the tree, which has like a really bad odour to it. Did you find that?
Didn't, no.
Yeah, so I really don't know, like, she was quite sort of repulsed by the smell. Like, I don't know how that could factor in going forward, but yeah, like a couple of little clues in this area, as well as like the little voice recorder thing as well, like the videotape where it had like music. I think it was positioned at the base of one of the lodges, and and it just plays like this sort of old tune. Again, I don't know what relevance it is, but I think when I looked at the description, it said like this was sort of the songs that they would sing back at the camp, you know, when it was first, you know, brought about and stuff like that. But, yeah, okay, so we then obviously go to Emma, and I know you wanted to talk about their relationship, didn't you, mate?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to stop and admire the fact that these two characters, Emma and Abby, are quite polar opposites. And yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed this because you could see in a typical 80s horror film or any film of that nature where a character like Emma would probably go out of her way to kind of, you know, target Abby. You've got like the extroverted girl who, you know, hates sort of like the quiet drawn freak or whatever, thinking she's a hipster, whatever that might be. Kind of a bit like Max and Victoria in Life is Strange. But now they've made them friends and they complement, you know, each other really well. You've got Emma like egging Abby on to talk to Nick and stuff, you know, last summer romance. And then I think, you know, Abby really grounds Emma, and I think, you know, they go really hand in hand. And it's just really nice to see their dynamic where they're talking about how they're going to miss each other. Yeah, and it's just the friendship I didn't think that would be a thing at the start of this game, but it obviously is. And yeah, I really respect that. Well, I say that, but, you know, we'll see how that lasts down the line. But yeah, it's quite a cool dynamic between these two.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And of course, you then have this choice, don't you, whether you go back to the lodge or whether you take the scenic route. And I don't know about you, but just in this moment, I was sort of more than happy to just stay out for a little bit longer and see what the scenic route delivered. To be fair, I was expecting that sequence to play out a little bit longer. But did you do that, or did you go out to the lodge?
Did, and I'm trying to remember, as in I did take the scenic route, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I know you look at the island and you see that potentially someone, you know, stuff's being burnt, so there's that that's relevant, so you probably get more clues. And I think it obviously just was a chance to develop Emma and Abby's relationship more and talk about romance. But yeah, you know, I guess if you go straight to the lodge, you just skip this whole scene, so not really worth it in my opinion. Yeah, the scenic route, glad I took that one.
That's it. It might be something, one we've played the game in its entirety or future playthroughs and we see what the smoke's about, like what, you know, the fire is, it will then become a little bit more clearer. But I'm glad I did it, because obviously when you put in pieces of the puzzle together, it might come back later on. So yeah, obviously you go back to the lodge and you sort of have your whole ensemble there. You obviously meet Chris for the first time, don't you? And I found, talking about relationships, I think that him and Ryan is also another relationship I didn't expect to flourish per se. And it seems that Ryan is sort of a very much a by the rules sort of guy. He certainly was in my playthrough anyway. But I suppose we can touch on quickly about that he's listening to a podcast. Hope you listen to ours, Ryan. But also he is listening to the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast, because he's obviously talking about the hag of Hackett's Quarry, which I think is a nice reference, like obviously for us, where obviously, you know, we've listened to it and tried to sort of mine for details as to what the game's going to be. I thought it was just a nice little addition. He actually extends on this further as well, which we'll touch on in like a future episode or something. But yeah, mate, did you want to go into sort of this whole scene with Chris and like the choices that you made in this particular sequence?
Yeah, so before we get there, we obviously meet all the characters, and yeah, like just to reiterate, I think they're a really fun bunch. One little point I want to mention is I had no idea that Nick was Australian. He said a few things, like a few one-word things. And I was like, oh, he's got a bit of a weird accent, one that like doesn't sound like the rest.
Yeah.
And then, he starts speaking. And I'm like, oh, cool, we have an Australian in the group, which I really like because, you know, with all these games, we always sort of have people from the same area, the same accent. And it's nice just to have a bit of diversity in there. I know that we've got a few Australian fans, such as Bazooka. So yeah, you know, I guess that's a nice bit of representation for you. It's cool that we've got an Aussie in the game. But yeah, also, I just want to reiterate as well that Caitlin's shaping up to be a strong favourite for mine. I don't quite have a favourite yet, but Caitlin's definitely in the running. I said at the start that I might be concerned that Dylan's jokes wouldn't land, being dubbed as the funny one. And he's very hit and miss for me. Some of his jokes really don't land for me, but Caitlin just seems to be on it. You know, she's savage, she's sassy, she's witty. So yeah, no, big up to the writing. It can be, you know, like really good at times actually. But yeah, with this whole sequence, yeah, the thing you mentioned about the Hag of Hackett's Quarry, I thought it was really interesting, the backstory he gave, right, about the woman in the woods who lost her son. And how, yeah, like, if she finds you alone in the woods, she tries to make you her son. Now, this is jumping ahead, mate, but I just ran with theories in my brain when I heard this. I'm already thinking that could be Eliza, right? Because we talked about in the Insta stories in the build-up about how Eliza talks about, oh, I had something taken from me, like my choices were taken from me. So I'm sat there thinking, like, maybe it wasn't her life that was taken, which is what we initially thought, her possibly being the body in the bottom of the water, but maybe her son was taken, and I don't know why she's being the narrator of the game, but really wacky theory. What if you're talking to her and she's trying to kind of like, you know, lure you in, and she's going to try and make you her son? I mean, that's just a wild theory, but imagine if we're actually like her, what's the word? Her kidnappee, a prisoner almost. That'd just be a really cool twist. There's just lots of ways they can go with it. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you, did you have any theories around that, Jack, about the Hag of Hackett's Quarry?
I did definitely think it's talked about Eliza. My mind went to who I thought the son could possibly be. Is it someone that we know? Is it something that we've still yet to find out? But obviously, yeah, the point you touch on with like Eliza, almost like with Dr. Hill, like who we're playing as in that scene, because obviously in that sequence in Until Dawn, we're playing as Josh, aren't we? We think we're playing as us, but it's actually Josh. So is there potential that similar things going on here, that we are actually playing as a character? So it will certainly be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward, because very much at the moment it seems, to me at least, that Eliza's helping you out. You know, she's giving you premonitions and she's saying, oh, you know, we're friends, but it could be like a false coercion, and you know, she could betray you further down the line. So
it is. I'm letting her help me, but I'm doing it very much at arm's length because I slightly mistrust her. I feel like something's going to happen with Eliza, but maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm wise to be cautious. You know, at the end of the day, she's got a gramophone and a load of skulls behind her. You know, I'm always going to be keeping that kind of person at arm's length anyway. But yeah, to answer your earlier question about what I made about the sequence of Ryan and Chris, I mean, their relationship is definitely interesting. You've almost got that teacher, an impressionable star student, while the others are kind of slightly party animals who want to break free and are sick of, you know, rules and stuff. And, you know, it seems like Ryan is that kind of star student who really much enjoys the camp life and really looks up to Mr. H, or, you know, Chris, as, you know, he calls him anyway. But yeah, obviously, it's funny. I found it quite amusing that Ryan approaches Chris about, you know, some, you know, life advice and what he should do, and Chris just slams him down, and then it's just like, yeah, we don't care about your backstory of your sister and your grandparents. But yeah, mate, so with the eavesdrop or listen back to the podcast scene, what did yourself do?
I did eavesdrop, and I was thinking at this point, the door's shut, there's surely no risk. So I did eavesdrop, and obviously the conversation that followed was surprising to me, because you hear Chris and it sounds like he's on the phone to Jedediah. I assume it to be Jedediah because the voice on the other side of the phone mentions Bobby, who we know is one of the hillbillies. So there is a relationship there that I didn't expect to have. I thought that the hillbillies were going to be this somewhat external threat upon sort of the counsellors. So it's good to have that little bit of information in the back pocket. But one sort of thing that I was thinking is, like, when Ryan clearly hears Chris come off the phone, I was thinking, Ryan, step back from the door because it looks like you're eavesdropping. and he could hear the footsteps coming near, and I was like, mate, get back from the door. And he's not. He still stood there, like his ear somewhat to the door. He's like, oh, I wasn't eavesdropping or anything. And I think like Chris took it lightly anyway, and I was like, oh, you got away with that one. But yeah, I was like, come on, Ryan, like get in the game, mate. You need to wise up a little.
He's a bit slow, isn't he?
Yeah. Another thing as well in this conversation between the pair, a little pointer for you actually, because there's a reference to a previous video that we did. The Easter egg one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Chris mentions, he says it in passing dialogue. He says "Sleepaway Camp," and obviously that's a film that you've mentioned before. And it's obviously a film that's, there's sort of like counsellors and there's like a threat and that sort of thing. So like really good digging on your end, lad, because, as soon as I saw it, I was like, Liam, fuck, like you got it like pretty darn good there.
Yeah, no, cheers. Like Will Biles clearly said that this game's inspired heavily by 80s horror films, and you can see them all. They, when Max is going in the basement in the prologue, he mentions like, you've seen The Evil Dead, right? There's obviously like a lot of Friday the 13th references. And obviously, Sleepaway Camp's the biggest one. You've got like all these counselors, and I guess, they get murdered off one by one. I mean, we'll see if that does happen, which, it should. But yeah, as for the Ryan eavesdropping, I did the same. The reason I did it is I thought back to the Supermassive game Hidden Agenda. Eavesdropping on a character is basically what helps you determine who the killer is. So I just thought, you know what, I've already been listening to my podcast all day. I'm going to they want Ryan to be this drawn in, kind of a withdrawn character. I'm going to kind of break the rules a little bit, eavesdrop. And I'm glad I did it. And yeah, if my ears are tuned correctly, I think that was Jedediah on the other end of the phone. It sounded very much like Lance Henriksen. So yeah, I'm kind of questioning. I didn't think Chris would be in league with the Hillbillies, but if he is, I wonder why. So yeah, very interesting stuff, mate.
Yeah, and to be honest, I know following that sequence, the group was sort of digging Ryan out for me, because I was trying to almost, even though I knew that they were never going to stay in the lodge or game, as Ryan, I was saying, no, guys, we should stay in the lodge, and I was getting defensive and trying to agree with Chris. But they weren't having it, and they were thinking. I think it come up at the side saying the group is getting bored with Ryan or something like that. So it seems like in my playthrough so far that he's perhaps like the least popular, like maybe him and Jacob, given how like they're treating them. But yeah, I mean, we can always sort of like wrap that up with the introduction of Jedediah and Bobby in the final sequence. I do have a particular theory going forward in this game, which I'd like to share, but do you have any particular thoughts on this bit, mate?
Not really, just obviously they put the sign in, says hunting season, and obviously, so I just was like, okay, it's cool to see these guys for the first time. We still haven't seen Constance, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with her, because, I think a lot of people haven't mentioned Constance, like a lot of people have forgot about her, so yeah. I'm still wondering what role she plays. But yeah, like obviously really interesting the way like Bobby's just absolutely smothered in blood, and then Jedediah, puts some on him. And didn't you have a theory about this, mate?
Yeah, so it obviously ties back to something I saw in the prologue, like when you sort of see Travis and he has like a little bit of blood on his neck. And I don't know, my theory sort of going forward that there is a reason why they're blood drenched. It's not to necessarily intimidate or to maybe sort of blend in or something like that. I don't know, maybe it could be that it somehow prevents the wolf from attacking them. Almost similar to, like Telltale's The Walking Dead, there's that scene where you sort of purposely cover yourself in like zombie guts and blood.
Yeah.
In order to blend in. I think it's potentially a similar thing here, and it actually will prevent the wolf from attacking you, maybe spotting you, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to run with anyway.
Okay, no, it sounds really viable actually, because I'm wondering why he's doing it. I'm thinking, is it like a tribal ritual, like traditional thing he's doing randomly. But yeah, like it's got to be something like make himself like wolf-proof, or like, you know, immune to the scent. Maybe it's linked with the vial that you found earlier. Like, I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of things it could be. But yeah, any other additional points, mate?
Not on that particular sequence. Obviously, we do then meet Eliza, don't we?
We do, yeah.
And for me, anyway, I know we've talked about this before, but my sequences with her are very short and sweet. But I think going forward, I'm not going to do that, because I have been finding like tarot cards and that. But whenever she says to me, "Do you want to see more?" I almost sort of saw that as like you know, that the curator in the Dark Pictures where he offers you a clue. And I was like, no, I don't want a clue. I was thinking I want to solve this myself. But then you told me that if you do see more, it actually shows you like a premonition in the crystal ball. So I was like, oh fuck, like, I'm actually missing out on like the premonitions, which are like a staple diet, you know, thing, part of these games.
Yeah, because from what I gather, like before with like say the Dark Picture games, is you'd find a picture and then you would look at it and you'd get the premonition, a bit like the totems in Until Dawn. This one, it almost seems to be like you find the tarot cards and you don't know what to do with it. You just collect it and then you bring it to Eliza, and when she asks, do you want to see what it is, then you do. Because I got one in this chapter, the Temperance one, and I found a little premonition, which at the time I only saw once and I didn't really understand it, but I knew it was to do with getting fireworks out of a safe. And then obviously in the next chapter I'll talk more about that one. But yeah, really interesting style. I quite like it. I don't like it when games carbon copy, you know, their previous ones. It's nice that it's a little different, but obviously it is a little frustrating on your end. Maybe you could argue they could have had a bit of more of an indicator or a heads up. That's the style of it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like I said, I'm glad I found this out now, because I really would have gone through the rest of the game not asking for, you know, to see the premonition. So
kind of in chapter 8, like, I've not seen one premonition. Why is that?
It was something on my mind, because there's obviously a clues tab, an evidence tab, paths tab, and I was thinking, where are like the totem things? Like, I'm not picking any of these things up. So it's all good stuff to know. So hopefully, you know, I'll be a little bit more forewarned in future chapters. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I've got to say, mate. So
yeah,
final pointers.
I do. I just wanted to mention that, like, this sort of scene with Eliza, it shows the location outside of it. So yeah, like, it looks almost like a circus carriage, doesn't it? So it makes me think that Eliza's linked with this burnt down circus that stopped running, that, you know, Abby finds the newspaper clipping for. So I naturally tie Eliza into like every sort of theory I have, because she has to be linked somehow. So yeah, it's just interesting, really. She's obviously the psychic lady who was a part of the circus, and now she's kind of linked to like the Quarry in some weird way, and I'm kind of really tempted to see how that plays. Another thing I just wanted to briefly mention is to bring up a few cons. I noticed it, and I think you did as well, is that it's a great game, but I have seen a few little bugs here and there. It's happened about 3 or 4 times. Usually when I've seen transitions, the characters kind of like, I don't know, like they're just not smooth, or they almost ragdoll a bit out of shot, like on the last split second. You know, nothing too much that bothers me, to be honest. It's just, you know, I feel like I have to mention it. And the last bit of business I wanted to mention is just Jacob, really. Like, I know at the start I was thinking, oh, this guy's got dumped, everyone's laughing at him, maybe I was wrong for like bullying him. And then 10 minutes later, he's there catching this phone, and he's there pelvic thrusting it, and then he's there like being a drama queen when like Chris throws him out the car, and then he's like, you know, pretending like he got like shot, or like, you know, a British footballer getting a red card, and like, you know, him diving on the floor crying his eyes out. I was like, Jacob, okay, yeah, maybe I had every, you know, reason to decide to hate you before we even got going.
It is true, because you're in a position where you think, what they're doing is they're going against expectations. You've got this guy as a jock, but he's actually going to be very sensitive. And then he has these like very wild swings in his sort of character. Next minute he's sort of being all jovial and jokey and, you know, digging people out. And he seems like the typical guy you can give it but can't take it, right?
That's it.
We've all known people like that before. And yeah, like and obviously the fact that he sabotages the van as well. The whole reason they're still there is because of him, and it's quite a selfish thing to do because he just wants to get with Emma. So yeah, it could be interesting to see what our thoughts are come the end of this game are with Jacob.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, mate. I'm happy to wrap it up there if you are.
Yeah, no more points, mate. So yeah, honestly, guys, thanks for watching. If there was anything we said that you agree with, is there anything that you did different that we missed out? Please let us know in the comment section, and we'll look forward to seeing you in chapter 2.
Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you then.
Bye bye.
Sub, share, smash that like button. The Holy Trinity.